Okay, we're live.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Bourbon Pursuit, the official podcast of Bourbon. We're down here, down one bourbon bar in Louisville, Kentucky, once again, doing this live recording. And Dave, you got some other friends on the podcast, but before we get to that, you got to kick off and talk about, first, there's going to be an event happening here down one, maybe 14 days. It's going to be called Whiskey Wars, or World War Whiskey. I can't remember which one it is, but it's going to be Kentucky versus the world. You can come here, you can get a 3-course dinner. You can go to the Down One Bourbon Bar event page on Facebook. You can learn more about it.
It sounds like the Game of Thrones or whiskey or something.
Yeah.
Take on the world, who's going to win?
What are you going to put your bet on? When you say you put your bet on Kentucky, today we're going to be talking about Barrell Bourbon, and they do more than just right? They bring stock from a lot of different places, and they're overall let's blend something that's truly unique, different. It's never going to be replicated again, so each batch is like that.
It's funny, Joe and I were talking before about people, Kentucky are laser focused and Kentucky only, and we were kind of guilty of that as well, and we had our blinders on. And then with Barrell, they're introducing a lot of stuff to the market, and you're like, okay, this is actually good, and where is this coming from? Where else is so it's like, I don't know, they brought a lot of stuff that I never thought I would enjoy, but I really enjoy the offerings they have.
Yeah, they really do. I mean, even at the single barrel program that they offer, it's something that most people, if it was just anything else, they might snub their nose at it. But Barrell is bringing out some killer barrels that are coming through their single barrel program, and most of them are all distilled in Tennessee. And that's one of the things that I think it's starting to change those people's minds of really what else is out there, and they're kind of on the forefront of it.
Yeah, it even inspired us to start our own brand. So thank you guys for the catalyst. And not only that, thank you for these killer dog toys. If you haven't seen these, they're Barrell Bourbon dog toys. They're awesome.
They are expanding.
So that's why we always love having them. They bring booze and now dog toys. So I can't wait till next time.
So let's go ahead and introduce our guest today. So today we have the founder of Barrell Bourbon as well as the master distiller of Barrell Bourbon. So we've got Joe Beatrice and Tripp Stimson. So guys, welcome back to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, so last time you were on was episode 164. So it's been a while now. And I would imagine that your neck's hurting because you're carrying around all these gold medals that you're getting at all these competitions.
A little bit, yeah. But it looks really good when we go out.
Yeah, little flavor.
We wear a lot of them, yeah.
But I mean,
he's like the Michael Phelps, the bourbon.
Kind of.
Yeah, kind of like that.
I mean, what did you come away with from San Francisco this past year? Because it was a lot.
Oh, this year we won. I think it's 3 gold medals and 3 double golds. We also picked up the best small batch bourbon over 10 years old award.
That's impressive.
Yeah. Who gets to keep the medal?
We have them in a case, in a display case.
Yeah, we take turns wearing them.
Yeah. This is your week. This is mine. Yeah.
So before we start talking about more of the whiskey and some of that kind of things, give people again just a reminder, a little bit about your background and sort of where this all built out of, because maybe they're not good stewards yet and haven't listened to episode 164, but
or every episode. Barrell introduces Fred on Above the Chart.
Yeah, I should have said that. I said we're here with our good friend Joe, because I say that every single week. I said listen to our good friend Joe from Barrell Bourbon. So.
Yeah, he's our good friend because he pays us.
That's what I was going for.
Yeah.
Well, we started this. We started the company. We're our 6th year, and we've just been growing in leaps and bounds. Since we've seen you, I had to make a list and I had to write it down because
it's too much.
Because it was too much. We've been really busy. We've done. When we were here last time, we did our first release of the Infinite Barrel project, and since then we've done 10 bottlings of it. And just to remind you, the way that worked is we started out by blending a large amount of whiskey. And then every time we bottle, we replace that whiskey. So right now there's whiskeys from 5 countries and almost 40 different, I think it's 40 at this point, different distilleries of product that's in there. We're going to talk a little bit about, I guess, later about Dovetail, which is one of our new releases. We just finished our third bottling of that. We're in the middle of that, and we did 3 Barrell Craft Spirits products, which was a whiskey, a bourbon, and a rum. We did 5 batch releases, a new year.
Oh gosh.
About 250 single barrels and a release of Canadian single barrel rye. So
you haven't been really that busy at all.
No, we haven't been busy at all.
Just relaxing on the beach.
Just had a great time.
Playing golf all day.
It just blends and dumps and blends itself.
Fred riding around golf carts and Norton Commons.
Yeah. I don't have a golf cart.
Yet.
Oh, I thought it was mandatory in that neighborhood.
It comes with the house, I guess.
Yeah, it comes with that, yeah.
So Tripp, what about you? So what's your talk about a little bit more about your role and everything that you're doing behind the scenes here?
So I'm basically over everything that's operations. Bringing barrels in, dumping barrels, putting blends together. I'll pull samples from all the different groupings and go in the lab, put blends together, and Joe and I will sit around and taste all the different blends, make decisions on what barrels go with each other to create those blends. You name it. I'm involved in just about everything.
Mm-hmm.
So the blends start with you or Joe? Like what's going in?
The blends just kind of, it's a conversation. We know we're going to do something. We talk about what we have. We fill in the gaps with things that we need. We ask each other the question, what do you think it needs? And then we go back to our stockpile of barrels and say, well, in the past we've had good luck with these particular flavors that we're looking for in this particular warehouse from this particular distillery. So then we'll bring those in and we'll try it small scale first. If we like it, then we'll scale it up. And we'll scale it up stepwise to make sure we don't go too far. And it gives us room to kind of go back and forth a little bit there toward the end to make sure we really hit it on the head.
It sounds like, not to bring up another distillery, but you do the Maker's Mark, different staves to do your own single barrel. It sounds like us, we go in and we're like, all right, we're going to do all these different ones and we're going to make our own barrel or whatever. And then you go back and realize that we should just start with something that somebody else did and work our way from there, because they have good flavors. So it sounds like a lot like that process for you all.
It is, and it's a very tedious process. It's a lot of time spent tasting different things, walking away, coming back. Again, like we talked about last time, Joe and I have similar palates, but we're hypersensitive to different things that we may or may not like. So it works very well when we have the conversation about putting our blends together, because I may not get something that Joe gets, or I may taste something that Joe doesn't. And we take each other's word on that and just keep on pushing forward.
Are you? I'm just saying, are you tasting every barrel that's walking through this door as well? Because I know that you're blending on a pretty large scale. So are you like, okay, well, these barrels represent this lot, and it should have some sort of similar profile? Are you really going through and sampling them all out?
We have to look at them as lots to some degree, because to taste every single barrel, we'd never leave, right? So we spent enough time doing this.
Well, some people would think that's really a bad thing. You get to stay there all day and just drink whiskey. But then again, I guess it's one thing when you work in it versus actually doing it.
Yeah. It's not always hard and fast, though. Sometimes there's a lot of variation in a particular group of barrels, and sometimes there's not as much. Every barrel is unique, but it really depends on what we're doing. Sometimes we have to taste more than others.
Mm-hmm. But I would say the single barrels we do handpick those.
Yeah.
But the batches we try to rely on past experiences from the different distilleries, locations, and put the blends together that way.
Mm-hmm.
So what's a little bit different is we actually start with a whiteboard. It's a clean slate. Once something is done and packed up, and bottled, we start with what are we going to do next, and then the first thing is we come up with maybe a concept. What is it that we want? What are we going for? What are we looking for? What do we like about the last one that we can tease out more and replicate? And that's really the starting point. And then the hunt is on between trying to find things that actually deliver that. But we can spend 2 weeks a month on one particular blend. We have multiple projects going simultaneously at any given time.
So what are some things, like you said, that some things that Tripp likes that Joe doesn't, and vice versa? What are some of those different flavors that you might like that Joe doesn't? Like, for example, Kenny and I, when we go pick our Pursuit series, I know Kenny's searching for tannins, oak, and I'm like, let's stay away from those. I want more of the sweet kind of flavors. So what are those between you two? And who trumps who?
No, there's never. It's always, we always agree 100% on what we're doing, or it doesn't get in the bottle. But
I think a lot of the differences that we talk about it's not more of what we like and don't like. I think it's what we're sensitive to. So certain astringencies, chemical notes, if there are any certain off notes, like especially in some of the new make stuff, I'm really hypersensitive to like a mildew note. So it's things like that. It's not that we like things that the other doesn't. It's the hypersensitivity to the different aromas and flavors that might be in there.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Well, what are some of those aromas that you guys are really going for when you're creating the blend? I mean, you said you start with a clean slate, but I mean, there's got to be something you're like, okay, like dark cherries or chocolate or I don't know, carrot cake. Like I don't know, like what is that?
The
Carrot
infamous
cake.
marzipan that Fred made.
Yeah, Fred put marzipan and you all in like the same sentence all the time.
I know. You're welcome.
that's true. Well, I think one of the things we really like are tropical fruit notes. Juicy fruit, dragon fruit flavors. I love those. We love those.
Absolutely.
We love those. Anytime we can blend to that, we'll just stop sometimes. And that's one of the reasons that batch 18 is where it is in the sequence. Is that we blended that actually last winter. We blended it a long time ago, and it was a relatively small batch. But I love the story because as we were blending it, we were as Tripp said, we step our way up to the volume. Like we come up with the theoretical in the lab, and then we try to replicate it with the barrels. And as we do that, we taste. We stop and we taste. And this one, we both at the same time said we can't not add one more barrel. And it was maybe 2/3 of what we wanted, and we just stopped because it was exactly, we had those super sweet notes in the mid palate of it. We love that. I think we look for a balance of the tannins and grain, and I mean that's all really important. Balance is really key to us. We try to make it as balanced as we possibly can.
Balance, but without basically recreating the same thing over and over. So I mean, there's got to be a lot of barrel junkies that are out there. And have you been able to say like, okay, well, I think when we did bourbon barrel batch 12, like that might be pretty close to 16, or you think like they're all just worlds apart?
I think you're going to find some similarities in all of them because there's a grouping that we like. We talk about complexity, we talk about fruit and floral, we talk about oak and vanillin, all these different flavors that are out there, and all of those are going to mingle in different concentrations in all of our batches to some degree. So while some may be night and day difference, I think you're going to be able to find some of those flavors in most of the batches. Mm-hmm. I would say something like maybe 12 or 14 is going to be a more traditional representation, which is going to be an oak forward traditional style bourbon. There's not a ton of fruit. There's not a ton of floral. Whereas something like way back 7B was just loaded with that fruit and floral note. So I think there are differences, but there are lots of similarities as well.
So when you're like making a blend and you're trying to get those different flavor notes that you're looking for, how many barrels of a certain type of whiskey to get to that flavor? Like, is it 10
That's such a good question.
Or 1
That's a really good question. It could be 1.
Yeah.
It has to do with the perception threshold of those particular compounds that you're tasting, and some